So if you want to find leads, there's no magic pill. Put your shoes on, some comfortable ones, get a stack of $5 coffee cards and bags of bagels and start walking into offices and creating relationships with people. Because we create relationships and we solve problems for our friends. And that's how Go Green took off.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Building Business Podcast. My name is Dixon, and today at our JobNimbus HQ studio, we are joined by Pete Harding. Pete, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead real quick to kick things off. I know you, we know you, but I just want to give the people a little bit more about who you are. Maybe give us a quick intro to who you are.
Well, my name is Pete Harding. I've been roofing for 43 years. I was hopeless, homeless, intoxicated, incarcerated, and went on to build a $30 million plus roofing corporation that thrives in the western states of America.
I love your story for a few different reasons, but where I want to start with it is just kind of where you came from, how you got into roofing, how you decided you wanted to even start your own thing. Maybe just start with how you got into roofing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Roofing chose me. I didn't choose roofing. 1984, I graduated on June 15th, June 16th. I needed to find a new place to live and a job. And a friend of mine's brother said, hey, you can tear off roofs for $5 an hour. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. And that was it.
So you joined a crew. That was where?
In Santa Cruz, California.
Cool. Born and raised there?
Born and raised around that area, yes, cool. In the mountains.
So you started on a crew, just ripping off shingles. What was kind of your path to climbing the ladder? What was your approach to that?
Well, looking back, I noticed that the boss said, just imagine the roof backwards. Imagine it as done, but you need to know how it comes off first. And I'm totally dyslexic, and it totally resonated with me. I'm like, holy cow, like that's how I work. Oh my God. So I started doing it, and back in the day, it was the Wild West. There's drinking beers, drugs, fights. It was complete debacle on the roofs, and it was so fun because it was wild. But it was hard work, and I felt so accomplished at the end of the day. And I tore off roofs for a couple years before I was even invited to lay them up. So I wanted to start laying them up, so it kept me there tearing them off.
So did you stick around with the same company and then kind of work your way into different roles there?
Yeah, I was within the same company, went up the ladder within a couple of years because I had a really good work ethic. I showed up and worked my ass off. Excuse my language, worked my butt off, and started laying up wood shingles, doing the ocean waves, doing really ornate sidewall stuff with cedar shingles. Then we started doing the trilaminate shingles. Then I started doing hot tar, and I learned everything. I didn't want to learn everything, but I was paired with an older German guy from Germany, and he was a true craftsman. And he was teaching me the art of wood shingles. And I told him, this is all I ever want to do. And he said, well, you're not going to eat much. You're going to eat rice and beans because everything's moving towards the tar shingles and the built-up hot tar and stuff like that. And the wood shingles are going away. So you need to know everything. So I started just learning everything I could. I became a sponge once I realized that I probably wasn't going anywhere else, like somebody wasn't going to save me from myself because I had no education. And the physical activity and the hard work, I just love it. And I love it to this day. I really sometimes miss being out banging nails.
Yeah, so you mentioned you're dyslexic. You mentioned there's probably like a little bit of that traditional schooling or traditional like 9 to 5 didn't appeal to you anyway. So this was a way that you could work hard, get your energy out, but also sounds like you had some pretty good mentors or tutors kind of teaching you the ins and outs of the actual craft itself.
I absolutely did. Back then, most roofers they played hard and they worked hard. So most of these guys were pretty hammered, you know.
While working?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time. And it was a time, definitely a time to be alive, I'm telling you. But
Really
yeah,
fast and loose, it sounds.
Oh, it was fast and loose. It was crazy. There was no safety. There was, I used to see fights on the roof because we were piece workers. You get paid for how much material you put down. So people would run up on the roof and try to get the biggest runs where you can make the most money in the fastest way. Well, people would throw their bags on it, and then somebody would move their bags, and the next thing you know, there was a ruckus. And it was a fun time. It was a blast, and I came up in the best of times, and I did have some great mentors, and they were true craftsmen. Like, they just weren't one-trick ponies, Now you have people that just do single ply, just do shingles. No, you had to know everything. If you wanted to work, you had to know all the materials going down. And I was doing hot tar when single ply hit the scene, and I hated it. I thought it was garbage. And, all the waterproofing stuff, and pretty much hated it. If it wasn't hot tar, I didn't think it would ever make any headway in the industry. Well, look at us now.
Right.
I sell $15 million a year of single ply,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it.
That's awesome. I want to talk about the other side of that coin, right? So you talked about how it was fun, it was energetic. You had people that were, I imagine people were just like hungry to like work hard and get up and do the job right. What was it like on the other side? So you mentioned that you struggled with addiction. You mentioned that you were incarcerated for a bit. I want to hear a little bit about what that was like for you, what the wake-up call was, and kind of how you pushed through that phase.
Well, when you're living a certain way of life, you usually gravitate towards people that are living that certain way of life.
Absolutely.
And roofing was perfect for that because we were like the island of misfit toys. We were derelicts, we fought a lot, we swore, we had some really interesting days at work, and sooner or later it just doesn't work. It tends to fall apart because people are missing work and stuff like that. And yeah, I drank a lot, and my drinking and drug use got in the way of my production. No matter what industry you're in, if your personal life is getting in the way of making that company money, you're a liability. So
true, but also if your hobbies outside of work are getting in the way of doing the best work you can do,
right.
Also putting yourself in harm's way, I can only imagine what it's like to be drunk and on top of a roof working all day.
Well, the funny thing about that is it's not funny being drunk on a roof, but I didn't fall and have 2 serious accidents until I quit drinking.
Okay.
Until I was totally sober. And I'm laying there on the ground thinking that this would have been way better if I was drunk because I wouldn't have felt it.
Right? much less.
But so what happened is, we lived footloose and fancy free. We loved dirt bikes and fast cars, and we got drunk and did crazy stuff and got in chase with cops and got in fights and stuff like that. So I just had a whole bunch of traffic tickets and assault charges and just stuff that I thought was normal because that's what we did. Everybody did it. Oh, freaking Bob didn't show up. He's in jail again or whatever. And it was just that way. It was mayhem. Every day was insane. We were working hard. We were drinking after work. We were fighting. We were wrecking cars, wrecking motorcycles, getting in chases with cops. And then it catches up to you. You don't go to court. You don't pay your fines. You get too many things in front of the same judge. They get sick of seeing you. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they lock you up. And that's what happened to me. And when I was sitting there in jail, the fog lifted. I got sober. And I started thinking more clearly, and I bumped into this guy. This is the quintessential change moment of my thinking. And he was just transferred there from San Quentin. He had been incarcerated since before I was born.
I mean, San Quentin's pretty high security.
Yeah, and I wasn't in San Quentin. And he was there for a guy got shot during a robbery. And he was incarcerated since before I was born. And this was 1980. No, this was 1989. Yeah, so when I was incarcerated till 91-ish. And he asked me, like, what are you doing here? I go, oh, I got, didn't pull over for the police, got in a fight on the roof, got assault charges, all these things. And he just looked at me and he goes, you know, you don't have to live like that. And he stood up and walked away. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? I thought this was my lot in life. I didn't even.
This was the blueprint that was
Yeah,
laid
like
out for
what?
me.
This is what we do, you know? And so I started thinking about it. And then I ran into some other people in there. One was a surfer guy, this Buddhist dude. And he started talking to me about Buddhism and Hinduism, and I was interested. And then I talked to this other guy about Alcoholics Anonymous, and he's like, here's the AA book. It's just a ripoff of Hinduism and Buddhism and Christianity and all this stuff. So I'm like, well, I want to find it. So now I have to read the Bible. Plus my name is Peter Joseph. I better figure out who those jokers are. And then, so I like read up on Hinduism and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow. Maybe there's more going on than just getting drunk and fighting and throwing down shingles, you know? So I decided not to drink anymore. And then I got out and started working, and I started working for the same people, and I had an accident. A scaffolding collapsed. I was doing shingle sidewall, and I fell down a ravine, and I broke my back, and it was like from the second I hit the ground, I knew there was something seriously wrong. So I recuperated from that, took care of a bunch of wreckage I had caused during my drinking days while I was recuperating.
Like socially or?
Yeah,
in your family?
socially, and made amends to people and stuff, and decided to get my roofing contractor's license because my head had cleared, you know? I'm like, hey, you know, I'd never passed a test in high school. I wouldn't even take a test in high school. They pushed me through. So I'm like, I need to do this. I need to take a test besides my driving test and pass it, right? So I studied for the California State Contractors Board, and I had, I think it was 300 or 500 flashcards because, like I said, I'm totally dyslexic. So I have to go over and over and over everything.
Especially, I mean, those exams across many industries are meant to be complex and meant to kind of wear you down.
Right.
So I can only imagine what it's like going in there with a little bit of a learning disability or
well, I didn't even know I
setback.
had a learning disability. It was undiagnosed until like 5 years ago. You know, like,
Yeah.
but I knew what it was. You know, there was something wrong, and so I passed this freaking test. I'm like, oh, well, now what do I do? You know, I don't know anything. I just know how to get hammered and do this stuff. So I ended up starting to do sales for this small residential company. All I did was open the yellow pages to commercial property management and started cold calling. That's all. And I started getting leads.
Just building your own book of sales
I'm
that
just
way.
like, I'm doing this. And then the industry crashed again. And then I went out and started doing my own thing. I was doing like 2 roofs a month with a friend of mine, and he was just drunk. So I had to get rid of him. And I went and got a job at a commercial roofing company doing hot tar and talking to the sales guys. And then I started following up on leads for them and started selling, and then started outselling them, because I literally walk around saying to myself, everything I touch, I sell. Everything I touch, I sell. I still say it to this day. It's just this mantra, you know, if I'm going to look at something.
Yeah, you're approaching work like that
Yeah.
in like there are no excuses. I'm going to, you know, achieve the destiny that I want to create for myself.
Right. And And part of that was I don't need practice. I've been doing this forever.
Right.
You know, maybe on the sales part I do, but
you're an expert in the craft. Like, you know how things go on, you know how things come off, you know what the finished product should be. You generally know the process of what it's like for the homeowner or for the customer, from start to finish. Like that's invaluable. They want to know that whoever is taking care of them in that way really knows what's going on. And
exactly. And so I started out selling everybody, and just not by astronomical amounts, but enough to gain notice. And I had a good attitude. Even in bad times, I walked around with a great attitude. Hey, you know, what's going on? Making people laugh and just having fun with it, you know? So then I was like, I'm going to try it again. So I got another partner, started doing it on our own again, residential. And he was going through a divorce, got hammered, and I was carrying his weight. And I'm like, no, done. So I went and got another pure sales job for a commercial roofing company and was just killing it. And during that time, I started looking back at how these companies were running and what I liked about them and what I didn't like about them. And the company I was working at the time, also what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. And I made some really good friendships with people in production, people in sales, people in the office. And I thought to myself, if I ever get the chance to really do an outstanding company, I'm going to come for all these people because they were good to me. They were nice to me, right? So fast forward to I was working for a company. I was doing production. I hated it. After I left that other company, and it was a smaller company, I was doing production and I hated it and got in an argument with the boss, quickly got fired, and had 2 kids in diapers and was like, what am I going to do? And
as someone with 2 kids in diapers currently, that is the last thing I want to do, is to quit my job or get fired unexpectedly.
Right. And my spouse at the time just came unhinged. Like, it was terror thinking about going home, right? And I'm like, well, the only thing I know how to do is I got a truck, I have tools, I'm going to start knocking on doors. So I started driving up and down neighborhoods and looking for problems with roofs. And, you know, I think that first month I got made like $1,000 cash. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I should advertise. And that's when we did advertisements in the yellow pages and in the backs of newspapers. And it started taking off. And I got a call from a client of mine that's an aerospace company that I still do work for this day, that I had at one of the original commercial companies I worked for. And they said, hey, we know that you got this thing called Go Green, because I had to do a background clearance, secret background stuff.
So real quick, backing up a bit, so that was when you started Go Green. So just your truck, your tools.
That was it.
That was the founding of Go Green.
Right. That was like scratching the surface of it. This is the real beginning right now. That was just doing work under the Go Green name. That wasn't,
Gotcha.
You know, you can have a license and all your stuff, but you don't have a company.
Sure.
I was just a guy trying to calm my wife down at the time. Okay. So I got a call from a client, and it was funny because like days before I was thinking, you know, I was in such desperation. I didn't have any work at the time, you know, trying to do my own thing. And I thought, you know what, God, if a possibility comes across my plate, don't let me miss it. You know, just let me see it this time. Don't let me be so dumb to not see it. So all of a sudden I get this call, and this guy, he's the procurement guy he's the guy that cuts the checks for this multi-trillion-dollar aerospace company that I actually used to fix the leaks on their roofs. Then I used to sell them roofs, and then I disappeared. Well, they still have my number. And they said, hey, yeah, we saw that you have this license and this Go Green thing. Can you do what that company did that you used to work for? I'm like, yep, sure, no problem. as I'm sweating bullets thinking, oh,
I really hope I can.
yeah, I hope I can pull this off because I'm scared to death right now.
Right.
He goes, great, I need budgets for 2000, or when was it? I can't even remember the year, 1990 something or 2000. That it was near 2000. So I go, sure, I can give you budgets. You know, I don't need a crew or anything. It was just me. So I'm giving him budgets. And then 6 months down the line, I get this email with a purchase order, and it says NOA building such and such. And I was so naive. I called up my guy. I'm going to change his name. I said, hey, Bob, what's NOA mean? He goes, oh, that's notice of award. He goes, oh, yeah, forgot to mention, we've moved that job up 6 months, so it needs to start in 30 days and be done in, I think it was 120 days. And it was a huge maintenance on a naval building, $500,000. And I'm thinking, what?
So you had 30 days to prep and 90 days to get it done by yourself.
It was 120 days to get it done.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it was just me.
Yeah, just
and,
you, no
and
crew.
this guy was a friend of mine. I'm like, you know, I thought I was just doing budgets. I don't have my crew set up yet. He goes, yeah, Pete, that's what I love about you. You're great at solving problems. Good luck. Click. And I was like, what? And I went straight into problem solving mode. And I called 3 or 4 guys, set up a crew. I called a framing contractor, had him come in, replace all the sleepers, and we nailed it. And that job came in about 65%. And that was the seed money for Go Green. So that crew has been with me since we incorporated. So Go Green's been around longer than the incorporation, but we've been incorporated. I finally incorporated it in about 15 years ago. So we've been together ever since then. The company I worked for went out of business. I hired everybody from there. All the people I said, if I ever start a company, I'm going to come for them because they were good to me. Mm-hmm. They all work with me. Still to this day. And, you know, the whole thing is I surrounded myself, and I knew it. I know I'm not the smartest guy, but I have great ideas, I think. And some aren't, you know, that great. But I know that I need to surround myself with people smarter than me. And I'm good at sales. I can get people all excited on doing something, you know, like Go Green, because I knew who I had to go after. I need to go after the general manager first. Then I need to go after production. And I already had
These are roles within your own company?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So I needed those people. And I can't spell, I can't count, you know, I can't punctuate. So I know I needed at least one person that can do all 3 of those things for a minute, so I don't send out proposals that are horrible, right?
Right.
So I got that person, and she is my right hand, right? And she's just the greatest person in the world. And then there's like the foremen out in the field that work with me. 2 of those, 3 of them were my foremen, my hot tar foreman and my spray foreman and stuff like that. And they're still out there doing it, you know? So I knew I had the team, and I assembled the team. And then you have to be the leader. I have to become the leader that can lead these men and women, right?
So how do you approach building culture within the organization? So you started it, you've built it yourself, as you were saying. How do you approach keeping people around, making sure that you not only have the best talent, but that they're not going to your competitors or elsewhere?
Well, you're probably going to expect me to say money, but
that's part of it. I mean, I recognize that's part of it, but there are many reasons why I work at a place that I work. You know,
I pay people better than the union does in the Bay Area, so that's a lot of freaking money. So
competitive pay, that obviously keeps people interested.
That's the attraction, right? So people just think they want money, but people want more. They want to feel like they're a part of building something, right? And actually, they are 100%. So what I have is the hierarchy of command and the hierarchy of decision making. So everybody out in the field, from the moment they're hired, anybody in the corporation knows exactly what decisions that they can make on their own before they have to call somebody. And everybody knows what decisions they can make before I get called, right? Usually it's plane crashed, freaking all this stuff. People are falling and crying. That's when I get the calls, right? Or people aren't paying.
You're not getting like the easy calls. You're
No,
usually
I get
getting
the
them,
worst of the
Yeah.
worst calls. So when I see somebody calling me, I'm like, here we go. It's go time.
Absolutely.
So what that does is it makes a human feel like a human and not a robot, right? So if they felt that they need to call me for every decision, they're not living their best life. So every person out there knows exactly what decisions they can make before they need to make the next step. And usually it runs very smoothly. It's just like the armed forces, right? So if anybody wants to know how Go Green runs, there is a book by Jocko Willink, and I can't remember the name, that explains the hierarchy of command. Because part of my story is I was a member of an outlaw motorcycle club. And that club was grooming me to be the president and to lead the club into the future, because I was a great sales guy and I was good at marketing, right? So
I have two questions about.
yeah,
well,
I know
one,
I just threw you
the
a
Jocko
curveball.
Willink book, is that Extreme Ownership, or is it a different
I
one?
could
He's
look it
written
up. It's a
few.
green one,
Okay.
and it explains. I didn't even know. So I have a friend of mine that served at the same time in the Navy SEALs as Jocko Willink.
Okay.
And he mentioned Jocko and all this stuff, and they didn't actually start getting on the internet until way after I started Go Green. And I put two and two together of this motorcycle club Jocko Willink thing when I read the Jocko Willink book, because I'm like, what? Because all the old guys that sat on the board and rode with the club were Vietnam veterans. And they were the Green Berets and I guess the Navy SEALs. You know, they're the special forces in Vietnam. And they were grooming me on how to run the club. So I left the club because one day this little baby was plopped into my hands, and she was the cutest baby girl, and I'm just like, oh wow, I need
Life
to
changed.
Yeah, like I was hit by
Shifted.
lightning. I'm like, I need to protect this kid. The way I'm going is not cool.
So parenthood is essentially what was your
that was
wake-up call?
Another wake-up call. You have throughout life. There's
Sure.
many, like, holy cow, I
Sure,
gotta
people have
change.
wake-up calls like in their profession or with various relationships. So I totally get that,
Right.
like you have various wake-up calls. I mean, some people have it with faith, with philosophy, with anything like that, with learning, with school. Like,
Well-
but that one seems like you were in a lifestyle that was pulling you one direction, and parenthood was pulling you in the exact opposite direction.
Right.
How did you make that decision? Was it an easy decision, or was there still
There's a video on YouTube about exactly how I made that decision. So when my first daughter was born, I'm like, I need to do some life-changing stuff. And I'm like, so I'm driving around, and I'm like, I'm going to listen to positive stuff. I've never had anybody speak positivity in my mind into me at all, ever. And it was when the iPod came out. So this was like 1999-ish, 2000. And
the big one with like the scrolly wheel?
yeah, the scrolly thing. I
Okay.
still got it somewhere. And I never throw anything away. And then, so I'm driving, listening to this thing, and I found this podcast by this young pastor. His name is Joel Osteen. And I wouldn't consider myself, a faith-filled person at the time. But he was speaking really positive stuff. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to give this guy 1 year. I'm going to listen to him every day, to the office, back from the office, in between sales, whatever. And if nothing changes after a year, I'll continue being the a-hole I've always been. And
no harm, no foul. I'll just continue my way.
I'll just continue my way, and you know what? That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, 1 year turned into 2 years, turned into 5 years, turned into 10 years. It's turned into 25 freaking years. So I'm driving, listening to Sirius Radio, and this pastor comes on, Joel Osteen, and he's live. So I go, you know what? I'm going to call this guy and thank him, because quite honestly, everybody that was on there was pretty depressing, but you know, that's the way it is sometimes. So I call up and I get through first ring, and they're like, hey, what's your testimony? I'm like, what's a testimony? They're like, your story. I go, oh, I was hopeless, homeless, intoxicated, incarcerated, and I built a multi-million-dollar corporation while doing the second most dangerous job in the United States. They're like, please hold. So I was like,
we at least want to have a phone call.
Yeah, so I was chuckling, right? I'm like, oh, these guys, this is going to be fun. I'm going to mess these guys up. So then all of a sudden there's this guy, Joel Osteen. And he's like, what's your story? What's going on? And I told him again. We had a 30-second conversation. I just said, hey, I just wanted to say thank you. You changed my life. I gave you 1 year, and that was 25 years ago or whatever it was. Thank you. And he goes, well, I'm speechless. For one of the first times on this show, I'm speechless. Thank you. And we hung up. And that was it. No big deal. Well, the next day, my phone starts blowing up from numbers from Texas. I'm like, wow, they're probably trying to sell me some Great Alls or something. Who knows? And so then I answer the call, and it's his assistant, and they want me to fly out their production team and hang out with me for a couple days to do this whole thing. So I'm like, sure, come on out. They're like, really, you would do that? I'm like, yeah, why not? Like you guys.
To connect and hear more of your story.
Yeah, so they fly out, met the greatest people, and then they leave. I don't hear nothing. I forget about it. A month or two later, they call me up. They want to fly out again. I'm like, all right, come on out. And it's Joel's best friend, a guy that is just the nicest man in the world. And he does all the production for him. His name's John. I call him Big John, of course. And a wonderful man. And then I don't hear anything for a couple months. And then all of a sudden, hey, we need your social security and your license number. I'm like, yeah, no. What? They're like, we need to fly you out to Texas because we have this whole thing for you on Sunday before Thanksgiving. I'm like, okay. So they fly me out. It's huge, I don't know, his apartment, room, whatever it was. I was like tripping. I'm hanging out with the Osteens. We're eating Texas barbecue. Best damn Texas in the world, by the way. And then, they did this whole thing in the church, this whole build up to me, this whole video. And I was just like in tears going, what the heck is going on? This is so weird. And it just made me think about your mind takes you to where you're going to go if you're not thinking about what you're thinking or whatever, right? So I literally for a year, and it turned into 25 years, focused on positive thoughts and action. And that to me was like the universe or God going, here's your proof, kid. You did good.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that like you kind of have this idea or this attitude of if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I kind of pushed back a little bit that like you've gone through some hard stuff. Like you've dealt with some pretty real life experiences that I think would have shaken a lot of people. And I think that your ability to remain positive and continue moving forward through that is something that more people would like to practice, and myself included, right? I think that when I look at people who have encountered extreme adversity and have still been able to wake up every morning and keep moving forward, getting 1% better every day, right? Or just improving day over day, that is something that I think a lot of people want more of or don't have, because it's a level of resilience that it can really push you towards massive success. And so when I look at you and when we hear your story and when you share your story with me, I see, okay, Pete isn't just someone who is trying to learn, like he's resilient. So what would you recommend to anyone in business, but contractors, because that's where you've spent your career, what would you recommend to them as they're trying to build resilience in building their business?
Well, so I have a whole different outlook on life, right? So I look at adversity like an opportunity. We all have problems.
Absolutely.
Everybody in this room. I have, by the time I was 25, have lived 10 lives. You know, I died, I've been shot at, stabbed, lit on fire, electrocuted.
So you're telling me you have to come back for more podcast episodes to tell us all about all those experiences?
Yes, I do. So the thing is like I had this kid, and you know, I can't remember if it was before or after that. And I was thinking to myself, man, you know, I'm totally broke. How can I change my life without using any energy or money or throwing money at it? And I thought, well, and this is weird to me because it doesn't seem like something I would think, right? But this thought popped into my head, and I thought, well, I could look at life as happening for me instead of to me. Just change my attitude about it. Then I really started thinking about it. I'm like, what is an adversity? And adversity is a hardship where, you know, I become a whiner and, oh, this is happening to me. Or, you know, where do like the 100-yard dash or the track runner start? On their freaking knees, right? So adversity brings you to your knees, but you're not hearing the gun go off for the start of the race. And so I thought, okay, every adversity is strengthening me in my resolve to do whatever I have my mind set on or my heart set on. And it's strengthening me to be the person that deserves whatever I have my mind set on. So life is just a journey of hardship. And I think people get caught up in being comfortable. Oh, I want to be happy and comfortable. Well, good luck with that, you know, because happiness and being comfortability is a choice. It's not a gift. You know, I'm happy with what I have, right? I just keep doing things just to see if I can do it. And just to see if I can help somebody else do it. Because, like you said, if I can do it, you can too. That's what I say. But you have to get your head straight before you become great, right? You have to get your head right before you see the limelight. That's the way it is. And you have to be in gratitude for all your hardships, because all your hardships are the building blocks to your immense future. But if you get caught up in that stuff, that's all you're going to keep doing. You know, like we all have seen hardship. We've all buried friends. We've all had horrible things happen to us. But yet we still show up to work, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think that like having your mindset towards growth, having your mindset towards let this be something that helps me get better the next time around and not getting caught up in that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and I think that the more people can practice that, because I mean, let's be real, a lot of that experience comes by way of just, I mean, I jokingly say exposure therapy, but essentially it's just going through more and more hard things and having more opportunities to learn from each of those. It's massive. So in terms of what you would advise to someone, let's say someone's starting their business, you know, next year in 2026. They want to open doors in January of 2026. What are a couple things in terms of mindset that you would encourage them to consider?
Well, I would dream the biggest dream you can imagine. And I would write it down and make it so big that it scares the holy bejesus out of you. Like when I wrote Go Green down, it was $20 million. And that was in 1992. I still have the journals that I write the stuff in.
So you're setting massive goals.
Massive
goals.
goals.
Before day one, essentially.
Totally. So, because you are going to become the person you have to be to reach that goal. And there's like you have to do a clearinghouse too, right? So like the thoughts of I can't do it and oh, I'm not good enough or I don't deserve that. You have to inventory that and see where it came from. I'm going to guarantee you, and I'm going to bet you $1,000 that you didn't just make that up on your own. It's been people beating that into your head. Oh, don't dream that big. You're really, you're not cut out for that. It's all that BS that the people love you who don't want to see you get hurt.
It's imposter syndrome. It's people feeling like, oh, I'm gonna fumble this bag, or I'm going to not make the most of this opportunity that I'm trying to create for myself.
Right. And you could do that as you're starting your business. So you need to get your name. You need to get your mission. What is your mission? Like, go green. You have to have excellent service and excellent craftsmanship and excellent follow-up and pick up your frickin' phone.
You have to do the work. You have to actually like make sure the customer experience is good.
Yeah, we see it all the time. Roofers get their contractor's license. They're a great craftsman. But now this is a whole nother skill set. So now you have to identify your skills. What are the first 2 skills you should know? Sales and leadership. You could figure out marketing on the way. But sales, marketing, and leadership, you better figure those out. And you better start listening to books as you're driving around, because I thought about it. I'm listening to the same Motorhead song I've been listening to since I was in grade school. If I had $1 for every freaking time, and it's not giving me anything. So I'm going to listen to these books. Win Friends and Influence People. Read Think and Grow Rich. As a Man Thinketh. All the books by Jocko Willink. There's success leaves roadmaps. If you want it, you got to work for it. And your imaginative goal is going to be the fuel that pulls you towards it. Right? So when Go Green hit $20 million, I had a party. Everybody was there.
And when did you hit 20 million?
Oh, I don't know, like 10, 5. You know what? It was 7 years. We hit 20 million. At exactly 7 years, and I know this because our old boss, it took him 20 years to get to 7 million. With the same exact team, it took us 7 years to hit 20 million. And that's the weirdness of the universe. I don't know what to tell you about that. But
I'm cool with it. I'm here for it, though.
But it shows you the difference in leadership. That guy was a freaking jerk, okay? And he used people up like Q-tips in the morning, just tossing them out. Me, our people are everything. So it's the difference. It's the culture. It's a whole different thing. So we hit 20 million after 7 years, had a party, and I said, I just wanted to tell everybody we hit the goal, here's your bonus checks and here's dinner and all this stuff. And, but I have to apologize. And they're like, what do you mean you have to apologize? So it was a bunch of cheering, yay, and all of a sudden I changed my energy. I'm like, oh, but I have to apologize. And they're like, well, why? I'm like, because I underestimated you. Now the goal is 100 million. Have a nice party. And I walked out. Mic drop. Boom, And 100 million between, will we do that? There's only a few companies that do that. But you have to have the goal. Because like I tell people too, starting a business, everybody should start a business because it's a spiritual experience. You're going to find out exactly what you're made of and what you're not made of. And you have to put the building blocks of what you're not made of, and you really have to hone the skills you have. Like a lot of us, we're really good people, being people persons or whatever it is, right? And so look at what you're good at and zero in on those and strengthen them. Look at what you're not good at and zero in on those. Like I talk to sales guys. How do you feel about cold calling? Oh, I don't like it. Well, guess what your first job's going to be? Yeah. You're cold calling for the first 90 days, right? Because cold calling thickens skin and gets the lingo down, makes you more comfortable. And so
it's repetition under their feet too. They're
bam, bam, bam.
able to speak better to their talk
Right.
tracks and things like that as well.
Yeah, so how's your follow-up? Oh, it's great. Okay. I'm going to take the first 3 months of you working here. I'm going to call all of your people and see how many times you've called them. Well, I've had a lot going on and I can't. Guess what we're going to do?
Yeah.
We're
We're
gonna-
going to work on this skill.
So sales,
specific coaching. You're saying that you're offering like specific, like, let's grow. Let's get better at the things that we need to get better at. You're leading in that direction.
right. You're asking me, if a person was starting a business,
Yeah.
you need to inventory. Literally take pen to paper. Don't use your phone. Don't use it. Put it on a piece of freaking paper so you see it and you're writing it with your handwriting. I'm not good at follow-up. I need to work on that. I have a goal for follow-up. How am I going to get leads? When I started Go Green, and I still do it to this day, is I walk into businesses. I cold call businesses. I cold call property management firms. I walk in and I tell them, how would you feel about free roof assessments for your entire portfolio? Now they have to tell me how they feel about it. They can't tell me no. Well, how do you feel about it? Well, I feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I still walk in. So if you're not good, so if you want to find leads, there's no magic pill. Put your shoes on, some comfortable ones, get a stack of $5 coffee cards and bags of bagels and start walking into offices and creating relationships with people. Because we create relationships and we solve problems for our friends. And that's how Go Green took off, is because I looked at everybody as my friend. So I walk in, the first things you need to do is work on your sales, marketing, leadership, and go out and get the business, because nobody's going to call you. Just because you have a license, they don't care. Who cares? There's 1,000 other people that walk in the door, and you need to really take a really good inventory of yourself, about yourself, on why people like you, why your wife married you, why your husband married you. Like, what made you appealing to that person? And you need to bring them value. So with that question, which is a free question anybody can use, how do you feel about me doing free roof evaluations for your entire portfolio? Here's my card.
I love that. I mean, so you talk a lot about information and how it should be accessible and free to others. You talk about a lot of that on social media.
Right.
TikTok and Instagram are kind of your two bigger platforms. So essentially, when we talk about like information, how do you approach coaching or mentoring, or I guess, so you're doing content now, like what was the bridge between, hey, I'm Pete, I own Go Green Roofing and I'm crushing it, to maybe I should share this more publicly, and these are the ways I actually want to share it. Like, what was it like going from running a business to starting more content focus?
Right. I want to be creative, and I want to do things that make me intensely uncomfortable. I want to do stuff that's so uncomfortable, I want to do it so much that I'm comfortable doing it. And one day I was at a client's daughter's house, and her significant other left her, and she was like 8 months pregnant, and her gutters were falling off her house. And I just knew I was doing this job for free. It's like, I have no choice. I want to do it for free. And I was talking to her about, my past, how I came from nothing to do this stuff. And she's like, I work for a place called LinkedIn, and we're rolling out this video thing, and you would be great on it. And I'm like, what? That's all I needed, some kind young lady to tell me I'd be good at something. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So I started doing these videos way back in the teens, I think before the teens, and trying to be appealing to a LinkedIn crowd. And I had a button-up shirt, I was hiding my tattoos, and I was trying to be something and I was really stiff, and I just kept doing them and doing them and doing them, and I started getting work from LinkedIn. And one year, a couple years in a row before COVID, I got over $1 million worth of work. And that's only 3 or 4 leads.
Right. But that's still
Right. And it was just like,
in the industry
what?
where like, one, every dollar counts, but two, each lead that closes is a significant chunk of change.
It was, and this was before it got really polluted with a lot of marketing. So I was nailing it. And I'm like, holy cow, like the money was proving.
And you were accessible, right? I'm sure a lot of these businesses, or essentially they were in need of your service, but didn't really know anyone in the industry. I don't think anyone from LinkedIn really knows many roofers, right? So this is a way for you to differentiate and get.
And it was, to
in
me,
the door.
It was a puzzle that needed to be figured out. And then this thing, TikTok popped up, and I'm like, I can be myself on there. I can be a freaking roofer, you know? And so I started showing what we do, because we do a lot of fluid applied. It's kind of California-esque type thing. But I knew, I'd been doing fluid applied since 1983. And I knew sooner or later it was going to start taking off, because like the iPhone, the technology started getting better. And then you have people that couldn't afford, the single ply and stuff like that. So I just knew that would start happening. So I started posting them, and I started talking to other roofers. And when I was coming up in the industry, I would go into commercial companies and go, hey, I really want a mentor. Can you help me? And it was almost violent a few times. Like, get the hell out of here. Because these are old school dudes, older than me, and chasing me out. And I'm like, I can't get any help. So everything I've learned has cost me millions of dollars in mistakes. Like, I've paid dire dues to massive amounts of cash to learn what it took to get Go Green to where it is, right? So I'm like, well, if I can just get one guy not to feel the same, at least a little bit of not the same pain I had, then I'm giving back, because I think my personal thing is like, we're supposed to become the best people we can so we can reach back and help people. That's probably the meaning of life, at this moment for me. And so I'm like, well, I could do that with TikTok, and, I could do that with roofing, because roofing wasn't so glamorous and, all this stuff. But it was mine. At the time I had already put like 35 or 30 years into it, when I got onto TikTok and started doing this stuff. And then people were asking me good questions. I'm like, this guy's going to be successful. I can tell by the questions they ask, right? So people ask me for mentorship, or you need to put these classes together. I've had people tell me, I'll give you $1,000 a week just to teach me what you're doing, just so I can shatter you. And I'm like, no, I don't want your money. I took money one time and I overcompensated, but I still need to work, right? So I'm like, this is no fun.
Because once you start taking money, essentially you're consulting and you're coaching and doing these things that are pulling you away from work. So essentially, are you talking about for like, you were doing double the work for?
Yeah, I was doing double the work. And
that's tricky for a lot of people, especially as you're trying to like explore new avenues and try new things. Like, you don't want to spread yourself too thin, otherwise Go Green suffers, or otherwise you're not learning everything you need to for this new venture.
And at that time, I was still kind of suffering from imposter syndrome. Like, am I really giving this guy what he needs? And, this is a lot of money for him and stuff like that. But time is money. And I was explaining it to somebody today. I don't give people books, because if you give a person a book, they won't read it. If you tell them about the book and they go buy the book, they're going to freaking read it. So if you want me to do something, I want to bring a lot of value is what I was meaning to say. I want to bring a lot of value to these people, but while I'm working at Go Green, I feel I can't give them the undivided attention I want to for a monetary exchange, right? So I would rather have them send me 10 questions and then send me 10 more. And then guess what? You can send me 10 more. I'll answer them. But what that does is it makes them think. Mm-hmm. They're not just listening to me doing some presentation with some slides and they're writing notes, right? Which writing notes is good. But It's making them think about what they want to know, in which when they get the answer, it really dots the I and crosses the T's.
And it also gives them a more relevant answer in real time. So like if they have a question or two about how to optimize one part of their business, if you're giving them an answer to that, they're able to act on that way faster than if you were to say, hey, go read this book, and in 3 months, once you get to the right chapter or whatever it is, and then you start implementing, you know what I'm saying? Like it speeds up that process. So you're adding value there where you're giving them faster answers, you're more accessible. That's why a lot of people, you see a lot of content generating right now around like people wanting to interview billionaires and tens of millionaires, right? Like it's that idea of like, okay, what is one thing that a successful person can tell me to do today that I can then implement into my business? Or like, how do I go from not doing that today to seeing impact this week because I've implemented one piece of advice that someone's given me? That's kind of, if I'm not wrong, that's kind of the approach you're taking, where you're just like, I've got a brain, I've got 30 years of experience. Let me give you little pieces of wisdom that are going to help you make an extra buck today and tomorrow and next month, right? To kind of snowball that.
Right, and that's really how I did it. If I were to boil it down to that one thing, my favorite mentor, it was a guy named Jim Rohn. I still have his tapes and everything, and I listen to him all the time. I obviously don't listen to his tapes because I don't have a tape player. But he said, work harder on yourself than you do your job. Well, in my infinite wisdom, because I was so screwed up, I'm like, well, I'm going to need more than that. I'm going to work harder on myself than anything else. Because if I become the best version of myself, everybody around me is going to feel the impact and the value of it. It's like the pebble in the pond, right? So, and what I mean by that is educate yourself. So if you're asking me questions, right, I may not even know the answer, but I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to go find it.
Or you can start discussion. You can then talk about things and collaborate.
So
as well.
When it comes to people, it's like, okay, I got my roofing contractor's license, right? And that was probably one of the hardest things they've ever done. It was for me at the time, absolutely the hardest thing I've ever done, and in a scholastic way. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's that. How do I do? Well, I have to figure out how do I make a bill? Oh my God, now you got to do that. So you unintentionally are actually working on yourself to become better, because if you want a better life, you have to become a better person. Yeah, we see people who aren't so good, such nice people, having these extravagant companies and stuff, but usually they crash because they're using people up. They're not bringing value to these other people. They're not celebrating these great people that they have and admitting that, hey, I'm seriously not the smartest guy in my company. It's the people I surround myself with. And that's what I do. So that's what has made Go Green so successful, is I preach work harder on yourself than anything else, and you will bring that greatness into whatever you do. If it just so happens to be roofing, podcasts, getting information out to people, whatever you're doing, do it 1,000%.
Right.
Because it'll turn into other things.
Yeah, and you'll have more motivation to improve that to a greater degree, right? If you're passionate about something, you're going to push it farther and harder and get better at it than you would if you were just kind of lukewarm about something.
Right. Let me digress back into what we were talking about. Create the biggest, scariest thing you can ever imagine, $200 million whatever, right? I want this house and I want all these cars, or whatever it is, right? I'm a minimalist. I don't need all that stuff. But, it's great to get some motivation.
For sure.
So you have to become the person that can attract that stuff, and keep it.
Right.
So there's that.
Absolutely. So on the topic of information and sharing and trying to get better, we've talked about this before, but JobNimbus has published an industry benchmark report every year for the last couple of years, and we're going to do it again for 2026, called Peak Performance. Last time you were here, we talked about it a little bit more. What do you see now? And it's basically just like, it is industry data that we have collected via survey from roofers and homeowners and others. Essentially, it just kind of shows a lot of the metrics that are actually driving the industry. Just kind of shows where your focus should be as a roofer. What kind of benefit do you see a report like Peak Performance having on roofers, both established in their businesses and new ones as well?
Well, it shows you your direction, because everybody has their niche, right? And this shows you, because I love that. I'm a data junkie. All my salesmen, all the salespeople I work with, I don't micromanage. I just look at the data and I collect the data and I discuss the data and we strengthen the holes in the data. And that's what this does. So as a industry as a whole, I knew Go Green was doing very well because the industry is down a little bit this year. But it shows that what really I enjoyed about it was I was not alone in my thinking, right? The way I'm thinking, like, it's like, wow, there's other people out there. Like, you can go to this data that helps you on shingles, and I think there was some other stuff in there. I remember it because actually it's sitting on my desk at work.
We've got a couple, here. So we're going over things like marketing and sales and essentially, like, leads, like where are people getting their leads from, and like, so a lot of like the top of funnel metrics as well. But yeah, you're right. It is useful information. We are trying to surface useful information and the useful data that's going to help other roofers and other contractors and other industries succeed in their craft and succeed in running their business.
Yeah, you know what? I have my sales guys look at this, and there were some things that I just loved in here. I just love the data, and it's like nearly half the roofers. How many years have you been in roofing? Nearly half the roofers, 5 years or less, and that's a huge amount. And you know what? That warms my heart, because there wasn't a lot of roofers out there. And back when I was getting the industry, everybody wanted to be in software sales. All my friends that actually finished school and stuff, So I think right now, this is going to take a big change for the next year, for the 2026.
Yeah, as well as including reports on fencing specifically.
Right, because I believe that the blue collar industry is going to make a massive shift from, white collar, guys wanting to make games and stuff like that, which I love, Call of Duty, whatever. But, to actually getting out there and getting their hands dirty. And I think that, because I get people who are 17 years old hitting me up, like, how do I get my license?
Right.
Well, first you turn 18.
Yeah.
Which is,
definitely,
but
we're seeing that scale younger and younger, right? And we're seeing the added influence of private equity and larger corporations that are buying, CRM platforms like ours, but then also that are interested in purchasing, roofing companies and other contractor companies as well. So it's important. We're seeing the industry push that way, which means that contractors need to be better rooted in the data. You better, if you want to sell your business to private equity one day, or even leave it to your kids or your family, or sell it to a colleague, knowing the data and knowing what you're actually worth is massive. Like, you're not going to be able to successfully sell it to a private equity firm if you don't understand, where the data is coming from and what your sales look like, what your, what production looks like, all that. So.
Right, and if you don't know your history about private equity in the 90s, which I do. So
and I don't. So I mean, that's something that you bring to the table too.
You got to be careful. So like, here's one in here. The big question is how I pay commissions. I pay a base salary and commission. A lot of people just pay commission with a draw. It depends on your company, where you're at, what you're doing, who you're working with, right? But, you can never, ever get enough data. And if anybody ever wants to, discuss this, you can always talk to me about it. You can always hit me up and ask questions about the data because I love it and I live for it. So to me, that's a steering wheel. But I'm also one to totally go rogue at any moment. You know, like I could look at the data and I'm like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm out of here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, testing is a part of that too, right?
Yeah.
Like understanding what works for you and your company and your market. You're doing commercial. A lot of folks are doing residential or insurance. And so that's a big thing to
But that's what I love
keep in
about
mind
this
as well.
too, is because it tells me about the residential, it tells me about the insurance, so I can see where those markets are going because they all affect each other. Like this insurance market, I don't know about the roofing insurance market, but out in California, just insurance itself, like they're throwing drones up and telling these people with, I had one come in that I did a presidential roof 3 years ago and it had some pine needles on it. The insurance company said, you better get a new roof or we're going to drop you. I'm like, so now I have an owner, an HOA calling me that, you know, gave us a couple $1 million that the insurance company says we need a new roof. And I'm going, what is going on? So we went and blew off the roof, took some pictures and sent it back. And they're like, oh, okay, our bad. I'm like, stay out of our business, okay? So, yeah, data's huge. And the first thing I would be concerned about is getting leads. But with leads, you need a good database, right? So when I started out, I still have my notepads, man. I still write them down. But you have to have a good database. And JobNimbus is one of the best databases because it offers you so much. It offers you lead services. They're tied into EagleView. I use EagleView all the time. Love it. You know, it's great. EagleView is great for residential. They're getting caught up on the commercial, which is awesome. And so those are a couple of things that you need to start out as a roofing company. You need to start out doing it right. So if you invest in a JobNimbus, right, and you invest in paying your taxes, right, they're both very important because without them, there's a good chance you're not going to survive because you're not going to be able to capture all your notes, all your leads, all your callbacks, have your alarm set to test, you know, your to remind you to call people back, to send out your proposals, to do your Eagle views, to do all this stuff. If you cannot do that properly, I couldn't even tell you how much time I wasted, in the first 5 years with pads and the wrong databases. Plus the databases back then were just horrendous.
And I think a lot of it is like individuals or companies that are just starting out probably think that a tool like JobNimbus will make more sense as they scale and as they grow. But the reality is if you're not setting up proper tools to scale, you're going to find yourself too pressed for time or having to micromanage the in and out of your operation too much so that you're not going to be able to adopt a system like this or a tool like this. And we have a couple of members of our staff here at JobNimbus who have run roofing companies in the past, and that was their biggest struggle was being able to get extra time back to even get a tool like JobNimbus implemented and set up. So earlier the better. One
of the worst parts is when you decide to change, and this is this is when it was really clunky, pre-JobNimbus and stuff, is transferring all the information you deem important to these databases. And the reason I say, okay, use JobNimbus at the beginning when you're learning how to pay your payroll taxes, when you're paying your taxes properly, you're not paying people under the table, you have the right database, because it's easier to start with no bad habits, right? Because if you got a whole bunch of bad habits and now you're moving over to use a great database and now you're trying to figure out your payroll and stuff like that, it's 10 times harder because you're already doing things not so above board and reaping the short-term benefit of it. So when Go Green started, it was out the gate trying to figure out the databases and using, pure taxes and all that stuff.
So like establishing a good process was important to you right out the gate.
Right out the gate, because when you start out the gate, you don't have bad habits, and you don't, have really bad habits that can close your business down the line, like seriously fast.
Absolutely.
Because you get people who start these roofing companies, right, and they're paying stuff under the table. It's not a roofing company, and they're going to get caught, and they're going to go out of business. Hands down, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
slippery slope.
So if you go get your license and you don't know how to start a company, learn how to start a company right. Do your payroll taxes, get a great freaking database, JobNimbus, from the beginning, because it's the worst thing. Like, I couldn't even tell you how many times. If I had $1 for every time I did this, where's that guy's number? Where'd I write it down? Oh, I know I had. And then we didn't have the texting we did now. We didn't have the way to go back and find stuff. It's like, that guy's gone forever, and they're saying, oh, that Pete, he lost he never called back, just like a roofer. Duh, he lost out on that job. So, yeah, so there's so many first things you have to do first. You got to get your head right to see the limelight. You got to freaking get your license. You got to get a good database, JobNimbus. You got to do your payroll right. There's so many things.
Processes, implementation, all that.
Yeah, all of that, and that's the hardest thing. But, now using JobNimbus, it's like that is part of the process. And, I don't want to sound like a commercial, but it is very important and so much easier, because all I had was, what they call them, the college rule or whatever, pads.
College ruled paper, yeah.
And I still do it myself because, I pay other people to learn software.
Yeah.
I have my piece of paper, I write down the addresses I'm bidding, and I cross them out as I go. Right. And if I forget to cross one out at the top, I'm going, oh no, what'd I do? Did I call my assistant? Like, did you put it in JobNimbus? And they're like, yes, okay. Is it there? Yes.
Yeah. Massive thanks to Pete for joining us in the studio today. Pete, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, if you have questions about Peak Performance, click the link in our description. Also follow Pete at Mr. Pete on Instagram and TikTok. He also has in his link tree a link to Peak Performance as well.
And other free stuff.